It's that time of the year and we're already gearing up for the election on November 5th. And if you're looking for a way to get involved beyond filling out your ballot, then consider becoming an election judge in Chicago. Election judges are paid to manage polling places and help voters. You can earn anywhere from $170 to $230 for your service. You must be a U.S. citizen and a registered voter in Cook County. And if you also speak Spanish, Hindi, Polish, Korean, Tagalog, or Chinese dialect, then the Chicago Board of Elections definitely needs your help. Head to pollworker.chicagoelections.gov to learn more and apply.
At the heart of Chicago, there's Navy Pier. It's a place where the Centennial Ferris wheel gives views for days. It's where boat tours take off and where the music is always on. It's where you can spin around on rides, share around with friends, and taste every flavor Chicago has to offer. This is Navy Pier, and this is what it's made for. Plan your visit at NavyPier.org.
Today on CityCast Chicago, the city is reeling from a tragic killing on CTA. A social media hoax fuels misinformation in Washington Park, and the Northwest Side celebrates the life of one of the community's most recognizable and joyous neighbors. Joining me on this beautiful morning to break it all down from Block Club Chicago, investigative reporter Manny Ramos and reporter Ariel Perella. It's Friday, September 6th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. Morning, Ariel. How you feeling today?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I saw you a couple weeks ago at the softball game. I told you I was going to have you on the podcast soon. This is me making good on that promise.
Following through. I love it.
Manny, it's good to have you back in the building, man. I feel like I had you right as the Bull season was ending and now as the Bear season is beginning. I don't know. I think Chicago sports, I think me and you, I feel like I got to bring you on to break this stuff down with me.
I think so, and hopefully we have better luck this time.
Hey, man, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I ain't getting my hopes too high, but I am keeping my fingers crossed. Before we jump into our conversation, if you are new to the podcast, welcome. We've been here for 3 years. Where you been? No, I'm going to be honest. I'm glad you're here now. Every Friday, we love to bring in these amazing voices from across the city. And before we jump into our conversation, y'all, I mean, summer isn't quite over yet, right? But we in September, we starting to get that undergirding fall vibe underneath the weather, underneath the activities. What's something y'all are looking forward to doing once it gets a little less hot outside? Ariel, I'm going to start with you. What's something you're looking forward to once the sun is stops baking you during the summer?
I'm excited to do some longer bike rides that will not give me crazy sunburns. I've been doing a lot of rides for the summer, for the triathlon that I did, and always had some crazy red everywhere. And I'm excited for this weather to cool down and, for me to get out there and not be so baked all the time.
And enjoy those last couple of great months on your bike. Manny, what about you? What's something you're looking forward to once the weather calms down a little bit more?
Oh, man, I'm looking forward to apple picking and pumpkin picking season. I love going to those little fairs that they have throughout the fall. Also, picked up golfing the last couple of years, so really want to hit the course, during when it's nice and breezy instead of when the sun's out there baking us.
Come on, I love the active vibes that I'm getting off of both of y'all this morning. I was probably going to say just sitting outside in the courtyard and just like sort of letting the nice breeze come over me. But that's not enough. I need to be doing some more movement. I appreciate y'all this morning. That inspired me. I'm going to change my answer off that. Longer walks. That's my answer now. I wouldn't have said that 2 minutes ago, but now longer walks.
But sometimes peace in the courtyard is always beneficial for the heart and soul, right?
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yes.
For sure. Again, every single week, we like to bring in our friends to break down some of the big stories that's happening across the city of Chicago. And we have to start with a story so many of us woke up to on Monday morning. And it was a tragic shooting coming out of the far west side, out of Forest Park on Chicago's Blue Line, when we got news that 4 people were gunned down in the middle of the night, early Monday morning. Manny, as somebody who covers transportation, I think this was the worst shooting on a CTA train in nearly 30 years, I believe. And as the days have gone on, we've gotten more and more information about this story. Can you catch us up?
Yeah, so you gave a great breakdown. A horrendous act on the CTA this week when 4 people were fatally shot Monday morning on a Blue Line train, and the bodies were found, shortly after at the end of that line at the Forest Park station. 3 of the victims were known to be asleep when they were shot, and reporting seems to indicate that at least one of the victims were unhoused. Cook County prosecutors laid out details of this horrendous act that I really don't feel the need to repeat. Other than that, police were able to find the alleged shooter almost 90 minutes after the bodies were found. He was taken into custody at the California Pink Line. Prosecutors said that when he was arrested, they found a gun on him that was in fact used for these shootings. Although Cook County prosecutors have charged him, it doesn't seem to have produced any kind of motive yet. It's still a little bit unknown on why these shootings happen. And as you mentioned, Tribune reported that, this is one of the first mass shootings on the CTA train in at least 3 decades from when the data started being collected and available. This is the latest of a bevy of problems that have plagued the CTA in recent years, but has restarted a conversation around safety on trains and buses. But in all fairness, about 1 million people rely on CTA daily, and these acts of violent crimes are just a small fraction of what people actually experience. Still, the nature of how the shooting happened has sparked concern, particularly on hows who frequently seek refuge in CTAs.
Yeah, the 4 individuals were killed at the time of recording. One 50-year-old man, his name had not yet been known, but Simeon Bahesi, 28 years old, Margaret Johnson, 64 years old, and Adrian Collins, 60 years old. I mean, this week we've heard a lot from advocates who worked with Chicago's unhoused community about how many of them seek refuge on CTA, how many of them are scapegoated in our conversations around people's discomfort or feeling that CTA is not doing its job. And so many have talked about just how difficult it is to find refuge for those in our city. Ariel, it makes me think about some stories you've worked on Alderwoman Fuentes's attempt to get more shelters in the Humboldt Park neighborhood.
Yeah, Humboldt Park probably has one of the largest tent encampments right now that's been there for a few years in the park. And yeah, Fuentes has really tried to curb the issue. Lately, she is working with the city to purchase a nearby building that would be one of these shelters. It definitely is a multi-layered process. The shelter would qualify for TIF money, so that could help the shelter, but it would still need to be rehabbed. The space is a former community center, and we're not entirely sure on the timeline of that space, but the alderperson has said that would be for the folks who are at the park. And recently, some city officials and outreach folks have been collecting names from the park from folks who do want to move in there.
Manny, I want to come back to you. We've seen over, let's just say, the last year, increasing conversations about how CTA works to deter crime, to protect riders, to protect the unhoused. They talked a month ago about an AI system that could potentially track weapons. We've seen, at least on the stops that I visited, I've seen more and more dogs. I've seen more and more canine officers. I've seen a bigger police presence. How does a tragedy like this impact the growing conversations of like what safety looks like on the CTA, but again, also what the city must do to provide more resources at the root cause?
Yeah, and I think that's a very difficult question to answer and a tightrope to walk. Specifically, we should be asking ourselves, should CTA be responsible for providing housing for folks or dealing with folks who are in need of social services, right? CTA President Orville Carter said earlier this week that people who sleep on the train shouldn't necessarily fear for their lives, despite the shooting that took place on Monday. He also stressed that he's working to keep folks safe. CTA has partnered with local agencies and groups such as the Night Ministry to find resources for the unhoused that are riding the system. But this wasn't the only act of violence on the CTA that grabbed headlines this week. there was a man stabbed and critically wounded on the CTA Red Line train in Uptown. And also a CTA employee was shot outside of the Roger Parks Red Line station. And as you mentioned, CTA also announced that it's starting a pilot program last month with an AI gun detection company known as Zero Eyes to help identify guns on its platforms before a shooting takes place. But it should be noted that this system, this software, this AI gun detection system doesn't detect concealed weapons. So it will only detect if a person actually pulls a gun out of their pocket or bag. And questions, are asked on how quickly can someone respond to this if it's happening on a CTA platform. How they sort of address this problem, I think, is an ongoing discussion that I don't really know if anyone has an answer for.
Yeah. Again, my heart breaks not only for the people who lost their lives, who are injured this week. I hate when these conversations sort of get reduced down to, oh, that's another violent act in Chicago, or that's another random act of violence, when there is something to be learned here about how people have been pushed to the periphery of our city, but also it calls into question our current public safety strategies, because remember, we can't police our way out of the conversation of violence if we're not having a full-scale conversation about what that looks like, what it looks like to be unhoused, what it looks like to live in financial precarity, what it looks like to live under-resourced without access to mental health, without access to community. And so again, my hope is that this tragedy doesn't just start a sort of back and forth conversation about, where more police are needed in our city.
Yeah, and I think it should be centered around the access to guns, right? When we talk about school shootings or mass shootings at the national level, it always gets brought up about how was a person able to get these guns legally or illegally or whatever the case may be. But when we talk about mass shootings in Chicago, the conversation is never really around guns and how easy it is to attain a gun.
Hi, this is David, the CEO of CityCast. Do you ever find yourself holding back on travel because you're afraid of a language gap? Well, mind the gap no longer, as long as you have Babbel. Babbel is the science-backed language learning app. Its 10 minutes lessons are quick and handcrafted to get you talking your new language in 3 weeks. So I was reminded in the Olympics how much I love French. I had spoken French as a kid, but it has deteriorated to nothing. But I thought I would love to take a trip back to France with my girlfriend, but I'm embarrassed because my French is at 0. And I thought, why don't I get on Babbel and revive my French? And it's been a joy for the past few weeks. I'd forgotten everything. I'd forgotten plurals. I'd forgotten articles, vocabulary. Mostly I'd just forgotten how to speak and how to listen. And Babbel has me back on track with lots of speaking and lots of listening, because that's how you get better at a language. So I've been working on time, for example, and there's this way in French where when you say 2:45, you don't say 2:45, you say 3 o'clock minus 15. So, je rentre à 3h moins le quart. I'm coming back at 2:45. Anyway, it's so much fun to speak. And don't take my word for it. There's studies from Yale, from Michigan State University that prove that Babbel works. So here's a special limited time deal for CityCast listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/citycast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/citycast. Spelled BABBEL.com/citycast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
If you've been in Hermosa, Bucktown, Wicker in the summer over the last 40 plus years, you may have seen the San Juan Freezer playing La Cucaracha, rolling down the street. And unfortunately, he passed recently. Ariel, can you tell us a little bit about who was Wilfredo Cintron?
Yeah, so Wilfredo, he was pretty much a staple of Logan Square, Humboldt Park. I know some of my colleagues had gotten ice cream from his truck before. He was always out there, and what was really beautiful to see from his unfortunate passing was how he touched so many people's lives, and especially neighbors. And this story really blew up in my neighborhood groups and among some friends in the community. And so really just to see that one small act of kindness, selling cones for $1 and $1.50 recently, but still really cheap for an ice cream cone. And this is actually not the first time that we have written about him. He was robbed in Bucktown a few years ago, and we also wrote about that and about how the community stepped up to support him and his family and help him get some new equipment for his truck. And so, yeah, he really was a staple, and it is really beautiful to see so many folks coming out and even donating now. There's another GoFundMe to help his wife, Brigida, as she and the family deals with his passing.
Yeah, this is one of those stories where I appreciated that people had given this man his flowers while he was still there, that I went to Google his name, and the stories over the years of people helping him get a generator, his presence in the community, what it meant for people to hear that song coming down their block, what it meant to see him and his son working out there. I love the picture and just seeing the Pooh Bear and the unlicensed Mickey Mouse. I don't know, that might be Picky Pouse and Moo Bear on the side of the truck. But I absolutely loved seeing all of the coverage and just seeing how many people, like you said, have come out, not only support the family financially, but have written about them on Twitter and in Facebook groups. And while the truck may still be there, I think it is very clear what the community has lost. Someone who's been there for, in that particular truck since '89, but had been in the community for nearly 50 years.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I know there's a visitation on Saturday where there will be some cones to be given out, and his customers are all invited. So again, that celebration of life continues, and I think that's really beautiful. And we'll see what happens in the future with the truck and with the family.
From a beautiful story on the Northwest side to a social media hoax on the Southeast side. Earlier this week, around Monday evening, these unconfirmed reports were being spread on social media that described 30 plus Venezuelans trespassing in a building in the 6100 block of King Drive. People said they had guns in the courtyard and they had motorcycles outdoors, to which I immediately thought to myself, this kind of looks like another hoaxy story that just got debunked out of Aurora, Colorado. Manny, can you catch us up here? Because the noise around the disinformation was loud, and so I need the noise and the energy around clarifying this up to be just as loud.
Yeah, I mean, earlier this week, as you mentioned, right-wing social media, I don't know, what do you call them, like influencers? They spread a lie that went viral, in which all was also amplified by billionaire Elon Musk, that Venezuelan migrants took over a Washington Park building complex. Calls to police said about 32 Venezuelans, who was also part of some sort of motorcycle gang, I guess, were trespassing and brandishing weapons in the building's courtyard. As you alluded to, of course, none of this was true. Police immediately went out to the building and couldn't confirm any of these outrageous claims. Instead, what was found was people just trying to survive like everyone else. Even longtime residents of the neighborhood say that the residents of the building are not bothering anyone and certainly not taking over the neighborhood. And this wasn't the only false claim, as you mentioned, of Venezuelan migrants taking over apartment complexes. It was just a string of really a demonization campaign to sort of motivate anti-immigrant voters to the polls, where they also claimed that a building in Aurora, Colorado, was also being taken over by Venezuelans, which was forcing the owner to kick everyone out. But again, residents of the building say this is not happening. Instead, they blame the owner of the building complex for slum-like conditions.
We actually got an episode coming out with the senior reporters over at Injustice Watch, Alejandra Cancino and Maya Dukmasova, about their tenant trap investigative series. And one of the things they talked about is how Venezuelan migrants in Chicago are increasingly finding themselves in buildings, being housed in buildings that have multiple code violations that go back years and years. And I appreciate one of our colleagues over at the Chicago Sun-Times, Armando Sanchez, was out there and he talked with some residents who were on the block who were saying, one, that story is goofy. That was not happening. But what I appreciated seeing in that video was somebody who was saying, no. One, we're not just going to demonize human beings, hardworking people who are trying to support their family, people trying to get their kids to school, and becoming a part of their local neighborhoods, taking part in local community gardens and the like. And so what I appreciated is that how quickly not only voices online out of Chicago were pushing back against that narrative, but how quickly people got to work to actually go talk to people who live. And I think, again, when we have a conversation about violence, spreading these kind of lies for a group of people who are already vulnerable, who already face increased police surveillance, who already are being put in neighborhoods that they may not have community, they do not have ties to or know how to navigate, but are simply trying to get by, I think creates increasingly violent scenarios for those people. And so we need to call out this misinformation where we can. And it's tough when it feels like it's simultaneously fueling it or giving it eyes, because these kind of trolls just want eyes.
Couldn't agree more. And also I think it's interesting that the fact that it sort of just spreads so quickly, right? Like when we talk about TikTok and Twitter, and despite how many voices that are from the communities and local reporters sort of like trying to extinguish this blatant lie, it sort of is unable to stop the fire from growing, right? And it just continues to spread and spread and spread. And when we have people who have, like, for example, Musk, who doesn't take anything down or doesn't, issue any type of correction, it's frustrating for folks on the ground.
Every single episode of CityCast Chicago ends with me begging you to bring your ass back for the next episode. Seriously, I'm going to keep doing it. I've been doing it for the last, 877 episodes. I'm going to do it for the next 877 episodes. I love the team. I love the voices we're able to bring in, because they also come on and share their good news. Ariel, what is your good news for the CityCast Chicago listeners today?
All right. Well, Block Club is having its first block party this weekend on Saturday. So we've been gearing up for that for a few months. It's going to be in Logan Square at the western end of the 606. So it'll be from 12 to 8 p.m. We got a lot of great local bands, food, beer, art stuff, kids zone, all the fun Straight Fest stuff. I definitely did not make enough time this summer to go to enough Straight Fest. I know you talked about it a lot and didn't get around to doing a lot of them, so I'm glad that this is at least on my calendar so I can get out there, and yeah, it should be a really fun time.
I love that when I went to Block Club's website this morning to do my daily morning read of the Chicago journalism landscape, there were a few stories back to back. One was just like, man, Chicago's getting some great weather this weekend, just in time for the block party. They were like, ooh, y'all should really check out this amazing band. We did a story on them. They also gonna be at the block party. And here's something you should do this weekend. Come rock with us at the block party. I love that I woke up to that. Manny, I think I cut you off there. Were you gonna throw some love to the party as well?
Yeah, can't wait. I'll be there. I think collecting tickets, so you might see my face at the entrance. And yeah, come show love if you have the time.
And don't stand in line and go, Manny, where all of the places Dorval Carter been this year? Where he been? Because he ain't been out in the field, man. Manny taking tickets, y'all. He could talk to you about that at another time. Manny, I'm going to bring it over to you. What is your good news going into this weekend?
For me, it has to be the start of the football season. I'm excited. I can't wait. It's been way too long. Pretty sure I drafted 2 winning fantasy football teams that I'm excited to see me go undefeated with. I can't wait. It's back.
The fact that you just put in undefeated and your voice didn't change. It didn't sound like you was right. You just kept going. It's like, I plan to have 2 undefeated fantasy teams. Like no hitching your giddy up. I mean, how excited are you going in? I know people have been a little hard on Hard Knocks, right? No, I wasn't trying to do that. It just kind of happened. People kind of been, saying this season wasn't as exciting watching the Chicago Bears, get prepared to, try to overcome some amazing odds. The Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers, no matter how much we don't like them, they're projected to do very well this year and potentially be conference leaders. How much confidence do you have, not only with what you saw out of Bears training camp, but with the odds we got on the field?
Look, I'm not no football analyst by any stretch of the mean. I just enjoy it as a fan. But with that said, I'm going to let my biasness continue. I think the Bears are going to win 12 games.
12-5.
Wow, all right.
Corley, I know you're listening, G. I didn't get your prediction last time you was here. You said they was going to the playoffs. Manny just threw down 12-5.
I think we could do it.
I'm not gonna lie. Last time I went through the schedule with the most bias I possibly can have, I had us at 9-8.
Ooh.
And the time before that, it was 7-10. And so it's getting better, but I haven't gotten to 12-5 Lulu yet. But I think it is possible.
I'm 100% delusional, but that's fine. That's what
that's
it is.
That's what you're supposed to be. I'm gonna be reaching a lot. I'm gonna be reaching a lot
for sure.
Where should I get some pizza during this season, Ariel? You had a great story about some places I can go get some pizza when I'm trying to watch the Bears game.
Well, in Logan Square, you can get some Bears pizza inspired by their opponents by this Logan Square chef named Billy. He started this program last year called the Chicago Squares, where he made different pizzas every game, and it blew up. He said he got so many demands. People were like, where can I get these pizzas? And so this year he's partnered with Jason Vincent, who owns Pizza Matta, which means dumb in Italian. Every game day, Billy will post the type of pizza on his social media. So he'll be making about 20 to 25 pies. So if y'all want to eat while watching this game, you can go to Logan Square and get some of these fun creations.
That's what's up. I wonder what the pizza inspired by the Titans is going to be.
Well, he told me it's going to be some Nashville hot chicken inspired pizza.
Oh, so at least he being respectful to the opponent. Very nice of Billy. All right, I got a couple of events to round out our good news this weekend. Please make your way over to the Block Club Chicago Block Party this weekend. And if you got some time, head over to Northerly Island for the 9th annual Tip Fest, which is Teens in the Park. It's the largest platform for Chicago young artists to showcase their talent, connect, and celebrate with other artists in the city. There are going to be 12 singers, dancers, rappers, spoken word artists, musicians, and more from the ages of 14 to 24. They're going to be competing on the stage for a chance at prizes, and it starts at 12 o'clock on Saturday. So that's another event you could put on your calendar. And then one more I'm excited for is the reopening of one of my favorite art galleries in the city, and that's Cherry Mountain Arts. I want to say maybe like 40% of the t-shirts that I own and probably wear in like all my CityCast Chicago videos came from one of the artists connected to this gallery. And so shout out to Rello. I'm excited to get over there tonight between 6 and 10 to check out the opening of the gallery. It's going to have to be after I check out John B at the Taste. I've been hyping this for the last few weeks. I've been listening to Cool Relax on repeat. And so between John B and King Rello and all of the great artists at Cherry Mountains, I got a Good Friday plan. I'm going to get out to the block party, try and take in some TIP Fest over on Saturday. And y'all already know where I'm going to be Sunday. Delulu'd up with Manny, wishing for a 12-5 season. Actually, I'm going to be wishing for 17-0. Again, I want to give a huge shout out to our guest today from Block Club Chicago, investigative reporter Manny Ramos. Manny, good to see you, my friend.
Thanks for having us on.
And covering parts of the Northwest Side, including Logan Square and Humboldt Park, I want to give a shout out to Ariel Perella.
Thank you for having me.
Before we let you go, I got to give a huge thank you to everybody who makes CityCast Chicago possible. Our executive producer is Simone Alicea. Our producer is Michelle Navarro. Our Hey Chicago newsletter editor is Sydney Madden. The music we all love is from Sam Thousand, All the Kimonos, and Mark Greenberg from the Mayfair Workshop. And my last thank you, as always, is for you, the people who listen to CityCast Chicago, who read Hey Chicago. It means the world to us. I have one favor to ask you before I let you go. We're going to be here bright and early on Monday. All I ask is you join us. Okay, technically I had 4 favors, but I didn't really want to seem like I was doing too much. The other 3 favors are share us with your friends and family, follow CityCast Chicago on Instagram, and make sure you bookmark our website, chicago.citycast.fm, for the latest of everything we got to offer. All right, that's it. But again, the first one, I don't really like to rank them, but it might be the most important. Be back here on Monday. All right, peace.